like 4 or 5 assignments as a lieutenant. It was the longest rank I stayed in other than patrol officer.
Okay.
So I was a lieutenant for 5 years. And like all newly promoted lieutenants, you go to the field initially. So I went out to it was a precinct called Precinct 1, and really in Atlanta PD parlance is Zone 1. And I had been there several times as a patrol officer. I've been there again as a sergeant. So, I mean, I was really familiar with it. I stayed on patrol in Zone 1 for a couple of months, and then I got a phone call from the chief who was in charge of field operations. So the deputy chief for field operations, who asked me to go over to Zone 4. Went over there, stayed in patrol about 2 more months, and then went to investigations. I was in investigations in the zone, in Zone 4 for just about 18 months before I went to narcotics. I went to narcotics for about 6 months before I went to auto theft. I was in auto theft for a couple of years.
You did narcotics for 6 months?
Yeah, so
what the fuck?
They weren't happy with the decision to send a guy that they sent to auto theft, and they weren't happy with having me in narcotics. They felt like he was the better fit for narcotics and I was the better fit for auto theft, which was actually true.
You think?
So they swapped us.
Okay. And for those wondering, when you're at the lieutenant rank, at least it is for me and my department, they put you places. It isn't I want to go do that job. It's no, we got to put somebody here for this position. You don't get to apply. Did you get to apply?
Not normally, but you could if you had the right relationships.
So who you know?
Yeah, it can be a little who you know about getting certain assignments.
Gotcha. Yeah, for us, lieutenants can be picked up and pushed somewhere else at a whim.
And so I stayed in auto theft until I did 4.5, 5 months in charge of crime analysis, of all things, which I was told to take that job. There's a whole story behind it. And then I did that, and then I promoted to captain from there.
Okay. So you taking crime analysis, you said there's a whole story behind it.
There is. It's slightly interesting. So on the advice of a guy who had made major, but I had worked with previously in my first assignment in Precinct 3, Zone 3, he told me, hey, look, if you have any interest in being promoted past the rank of lieutenant, you need to schedule a meeting with the police chief. So it was Chief George Turner at the time was the chief of the Atlanta Police Department. He goes, go see Miss Freeman, his secretary, ask to get on his schedule, and just say you want to have a meeting with him about your resume to make sure that you've done all the things you need to do to be promotable. And so by this time, I'd finished my undergraduate degree. I'd gone back and finished because I attended Florida State, which is why I have the sweatshirt on. But at the end of the day, I didn't finish at Florida State. I partied a little too hard and ended up not finishing school there. And I finished as a grown-up. And then I'd gone on ahead and gotten my master's degree, and I'd gone to the Northwestern School of Police Staff and Command by this time. So I'd kind of done, like, I checked a bunch of boxes, and I just checked those boxes so that they couldn't ever look at me and go, well, we'd promote you, but you don't have this.
Right.
Right. So I checked all the boxes, and then I go and schedule this meeting with Chief Turner, and I walk into his office, and, you know, he knows who I am. As a lieutenant, the chief probably knows the vast majority of lieutenants and above on any police department, unless you're in New York City or LA, which is a whole different animal.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, so at the end of the day, we had a pretty cordial conversation. The only piece of advice he gave me is like, look, you've done everything you need to do. Your resume looks perfect. You've been to all the right schools, had all the right assignments. You don't have any administrative assignments. You've never done anything administrative. All of your experiences in operations. If by chance an opportunity presents itself to take administrative assignment, you probably want to do that. I was like, yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
2 weeks later, I got a phone call from the deputy chief who runs crime analysis telling me she'd like me to come to crime analysis. So I'm pretty sure that there was a conversation that was had there. And I was smart enough when I got that phone call to say yes, which was a theme throughout my career. Like anytime I got asked to do something, you say yes.
Yes.
I said no only once in my entire career. And I didn't say no directly. What I said is, I don't think you're going to be happy with me there because I don't think I'm a good fit by personality for that assignment.
Yeah. I tell people that all the time. Like, if you were asked by anybody of significance in the department to do something, probably best you just go along with it.
And I can give an example where it worked against me, right? So I had, I got a phone call from my assistant precinct commander, so a captain, Valerie Dalton, and she's like, look, Deborah Williams, who's a friend of hers, who's a major who's running special enforcement, called her and said, do you have somebody good to go to Homeland Security? And she's like, yeah, I've got this sergeant who's running my crime suppression team. I think he'd be a great fit. you should call him. So she calls me to say she's going to, Major Williams is going to call me. Calls 10 minutes later. And she's like, would you be willing to come to Homeland Security? I'm like, absolutely, ma'am.
Hell yeah.
I mean, you're going to say yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's a pretty cool assignment.
That's a cool assignment, yeah.
So I went up there for a couple of years, but about a month after I got there, I got the call from the Major Crimes Commander who basically says, hey, I need you to come to Evening Watch Homicide. Now, we talked earlier.
Motherfucker, I just got here.
Right. We talked earlier about this was my ultimate dream was to go to homicide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I walk into Major Williams' office. I'm like, look, I know I've only been here a month. She goes, you're not going anywhere. I know he called you. Don't even come in here with that nonsense.
Yeah, I know he called you. That's bad. That means he called ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm asking him.
So it was pretty funny.
Dang. So did you go?
To homicide?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay.
She kept me in Homeland.
So you stayed.
But it wasn't it wasn't like I was
Dude,
miserable.
I would have,
Yeah.
me personally, just saying, I would have stayed at Homeland. That's my wheelhouse. And we talked about how when you get in, what your ideas are versus what actually happens. I have found that I love the intel, national security, Homeland Security, whatever it is, emergency management. I like that side of the house when it comes to trying to thwart really bad shit.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
We got to do some of that. I mean, I think I was over there as a sergeant, it was like 2008, 2009. So, I mean, it wasn't that far removed from 9/11. We did a lot of site security type work and things like that.